Yeah, Paul, listen, thanks very much for talking to us today.
That's fine, it's my pleasure.
Now, the reason that you're talking to us today is you have two big events coming up at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, I believe.
That's right, 2 shows, what a fool.
Right, now, one, we're going to talk about, we'll talk about MMORPG first.
Okay.
Which, now I know a lot of our listeners will know what that means. It's a massive, break it down for me, it's a massive...
Well, originally it's massively multiplayer online roleplay game.
Yeah.
But in this case it's massively multiplayer on-stage roleplay game.
Okay.
There's a change of format there.
Yeah, okay, so tell me how that worked, because I know normally it would be things like Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of thing where you get loads of people together, they play online. How does it work on stage?
It's very much similar. It's a small pared down version of a game of Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or something like that. Essentially, I've taken out swathes of admin and sort of replaced it with jokes. So you have get 3 people out of the audience who take on roles of different characters. So like you have a mage, a warrior, and a thief. So nothing too out of the box there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they play through a narrative that I sort of have, and they make decisions as they go along. They have a quest, a task to do, and they make decisions as they go along, and all the decisions are played out using the roll of a massive D20, 20-sided die that I have.
Right.
And so depending on how they roll, the result of the roll depends on where the story goes. It depends on how successful they are. But part of that is pretty much up to them what they do. It's kind of open world. We get the audience to help an awful lot. So there's a heck of a lot of interaction.
It sounds mental.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you're doing this. You're obviously going to be doing this, as you said, in front of an audience. And I take it a lot of it's just sort of made. I mean, you don't guide things. It happens as it happens.
Yeah. I mean, I do obviously have a certain hand on the tiller.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it has to. There's a safety net involved, so in case if the audio, if it's not going particularly well, we can always steer it back into, a safe place where so that it's still entertaining.
Yes.
But generally, yeah, the players are really imaginative, and the audience as well, because obviously it's usually made up mostly of nerds who understand the rhetoric and are really up for sort of playing with conventions. Although the sort of outlook of the show is hopefully that it's inclusion, so if you've never played anything like this before, you can turn up and within 5 minutes you know exactly what's going on, and you're in there with everybody else. And
tell me this: do the participants dress up, or do they just do it in their own clothes?
They haven't yet, but
right.
I'm not. Well, I think one person did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're probably going to. It's going to happen.
Yeah. So I mean, if there's a guy sitting in the audience dressed like a knight, he's in.
Potentially, yeah. I certainly ask. The question. There's a couple of trials first. What happens is, I ask for volunteers for different for the different parts, and then there's a trial. So to see whether or not they're sort of worthy, in inverted commas, to take part. But yeah. I guess if you turn up in costume, I'm probably going to ask you a question or two, yeah.
Now, where did the idea come from? I mean, what were you thinking when you thought, and were you playing online one night and thought, you know what, I want to do this live?
Not really. I mean, I've always been, I'm massively into sort of role-play games and sort of fantasy genre in general. But weirdly, I started listening to Harmontown, which is Dan Harmon's podcast. Mm-hmm. Who is, if you don't know, is the creator of Community and Rick and Morty
yes.
and other things like that. And there's a section in his podcast where they'll play D&D for 15-20 minutes.
Right. Which I think fans of Community will get the reference there, all right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. They're even doing like an animated version of it now, so he's jumped on more on it. And they seem to, like, certain times of it, they seem to have so much fun and it seems to work really well. But then it sort of, and other times it seems to just sort of like peter out and you're sort of listening to 4 people try to get out of a hole for 20 minutes, which just isn't fun. So I sort of, it seemed like a really good idea from there. And I thought, if I could take this, make it last an hour, and make it, keep it entertaining and keep it funny, and sort of so you have to sort of make the quests workable within an hour, so you can finish your task within the allotted time of the show, so that you get that sort of completionist feel.
Yes.
Yeah, you get to the end of it and go, hooray, we've won, or hooray, we've completely screwed this. We're all dead.
Now, apart from that, one other show that you're doing, and this was a big part of my childhood, is you're bringing back Nightmare.
Yeah, third Edinburgh, fourth year. We've been doing Nightmare Live.
Yeah.
I mean, again, one sort of feeds into the other. So having sort of done Nightmare for a few years and built up sort of a really nice sort of following, a really nice sort of nerdy crowd, MMORPG seemed like a natural, a natural child of it. Also, I get to play all the fun parts of MMORPG, whereas in Nightmare I'm sort of trade-off, which is great, but it's slightly administrative. You sort of stand on the side watching all the other actors have fun.
Okay. So you pretend to be Hugo Mayad for a while?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. It's a slightly, it's a different take on the parts, but with enough similarities that it's definitely the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with sort of slight differences.
Okay, now for anybody that doesn't remember Nightmare was a big show, it was in the 80s, wasn't it? About the mid-80s?
Started in the 80s, finished in the 90s.
Okay, so Nightmare, it was a bunch of children went in, one of their friends went into the dungeon, he wore the helmet so he couldn't see what was going on.
That's right.
And he basically, so he fought like dragons and ground that was falling apart, and his friends had to tell him move left, move right, run, walk.
Yeah, they put him in a blue screen sort of room.
Yeah.
Like chroma key rooms. That's early green screen for any kids out there. And the other guys would stay in a different room and watch through a monitor and try and guide them around and get them to solve the puzzles, answer the riddles, escape the dragon, pick up fruit and whatnot along the way to sort of keep your life force going. Mm-hmm. And that's worked really well on stage. If you are slightly too young for Nightmare, it's like Raven, but good. That's my sort of go-to. So I'm like, I can never watch Raven. I'm too old. It could be brilliant. I don't know.
So tell me, Paul, how does that work on stage? Do you use the green screen or the blue screen, and do the people see like a screen where the person's obviously walking through the dungeon? Is that the way you do it?
No, we do it all night. So we have a team of comedians usually, or actors who sort of sit on a small table on one side of the stage, and using lighting effects, we sort of make it look like they're in a different place. And then somebody walks around with the helmet on, and usually members of the public, and they're guided through like a stage setting. Okay. They'll encounter characters, and riddles and massive puppets, and all the things you might expect in a huge dungeon. Although we've got a really, the set this year is we've got a really lovely effect. I've created this backdrop that's light sensitive, so depending on which kind of light you shine on it, it shows up a different room.
Oh.
It's sort of quite an old technique, but it's impressive nonetheless. It's yeah.
And obviously, the person in the maze in the dungeon they're wearing the helmet. They can't see what's happening.
No, they can't see anything. No, not so. And also, yeah, but the person in the helmet is a member of the public. So people reading this or hearing this, if they do fancy getting involved, and just sort of email us at Nightmare Live. On the website there's an email address, and to the date you've got tickets for, and we'll stick you on a list, because currently we're running through them quite quickly. Yeah, no doubt.
I would imagine this, because I'm annoyed now that I'm in Northern Ireland, because I would love to give this a go.
Yeah. So thinking about sadly taking the set and the cast and everybody across the island just isn't practical, unfortunately. We've had a lot of people from Belfast and from Dublin all going, when are you bringing it over? And it's just not feasible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right, so you're saying that people obviously can email you to get on the list. When is the show itself? Tell people when the Edinburgh Fringe is on, and when the two shows themselves can be attended and you maybe take part in it.
So, Nightmare Live is on at the Pleasance Kingdome at 7 p.m. That'll be from the 3rd to the 30th of August. We're taking the 15th off, because, day off. And then MMORPG is on at the Counting House at 9:20 on the same date. So essentially, you can come and see Nightmare, and then roll in and follow me along the road and come and see MMORPG.
Come see MMORPG. Okay. Sounds a bit rude. So
yeah,
obviously,
it doesn't have, I mean, no simple. It's most of the time it's just getting people up to speak of saying MMORPG.
yeah. No, to be honest with you, I never actually knew that was a word. I always just thought it was a string of letters. So I mean, this is obviously something that you've been doing for a while now. Obviously, you wouldn't be bringing it back if it wasn't successful. I'm guessing you're feeling in a world that's so involved with things like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, stuff like that. That this is really big right now.
Oh yeah, it's been a huge help to us to have have fantasy genre front and centre, especially Game of Thrones. And recently has really put a stamp on things. And we obviously can reference the shows in our show because a lot of it's semi-improvised. We don't know what's going to happen. All of the games in the rooms are sort of set up, but what happens within them is entirely up to the player. It's still a live game. But yeah, so we could throw in Game of Thrones references here and there. We're all nerds. That's the sort of best thing about the cast. The best thing about working with everybody is everyone's in on the joke. Everyone knows.
Well, listen, Paul, I gotta say that it genuinely sounds like an awful lot of fun. And whenever remind us closer to the time, we'll put the word back out on the site and our Facebook and stuff as well to remind people that it's happening. And I absolutely wish you all the best with it. But it sounds like it's in safe hands. It sounds like you know exactly what you're at this stage.
Yeah, I'm an old hand now. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, you're an old hand. You're an old hand to being a dungeon master. That's kind of a cool thing to say.
Yeah, level 12 dungeon master. Thank you.
Well, listen, Paul. Let's stay in touch with us, and send us images and stuff, and keep us up to date. And we'll do the same with the audience. And as I say, I wish you all the best with it. It really does sound fantastic.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Bye bye.
Take care, Paul. Bye.